Hi, and thank you for listening to Dream 10X Radio, where we interview people attempting to live extraordinary lives. Our twofold purpose is to both direct and inspire people bold enough to do the same. Dream 10X. Face your fears and make your life count. Hey, welcome to Dream 10X, episode 60. It's your boy JC.
And Dr. Capel.
And this week we had the pleasure of interviewing somebody in person. Well, not in person, but interviewing a person on our podcast, Ellen Durkan. And she's an artist who builds metal clothing. Mm-hmm. And she's a blacksmith, but she's also an artist. She's also a college teacher, college adjunct professor. Mm-hmm. And it was a pleasure speaking with her and learning a little bit about how she's kind of painted her career arc, to use a metaphor, artist metaphor. And instead of going into nursing, she became a blacksmith artist instructor, and she's continuing to evolve her career. Mm-hmm. And it was just really interesting to hear about how she thinks and how she goes about her life. And I really like artistic-minded people and the creative process that goes into making things. And you want to talk a little bit about how you know her?
So I took a class with her last May. And the reason, so I was looking at the Virginia Institute of Blacksmithing, a brilliant school in Wadesboro, Virginia. Anybody who's even interested in blacksmithing, I strongly recommend going there because they are phenomenal. And they take you from the very basics and teach you how to do everything that you need to do and to be successful at a project. So I was kind of looking through their classes going, I don't want to do bladesmithing. I kind of want to do roses or the artistic stuff. That's cool. And then I saw Ellen's, and it's all this forged fashion. So it had just these beautiful, the one that really struck me was a corset out of metal. And I completely fell in love and said, I want to do that. So for me, I like Ren Fair. I do steampunk. I make my own outfits, that kind of thing. And so it just really immediately spoke to me as an artist, and for me, a budding artist. And about this is how I want to express myself, I guess.
You think her intrigue is mostly geared towards women? Do you think making clothing out of metal is more of a woman thing? Or?
I don't, and especially when I look at the folks who attended the one class last May, it was all men except for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One dude did this really cool thing, and it was a rib cage, and it was a wearable rib cage. It was awesome. Another person did these shoulder pieces. So it's definitely not just women.
Why did they want to do that? Just for the artistic flair of
Everybody has different motivations.
Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering what were some of the motivations for that.
Yeah.
It's definitely a creative niche that she has. And I know that a lot of people want to make knives when they get into blacksmithing. Let's make knives or let's make swords. And you never have. You've never had that real interest.
It's not my thing, no.
Yeah, so when you saw Ellen's class, she was very excited to do something creative like that with to help her learn her blacksmith skills. And what was it that was really intriguing about her class?
The whole thing. So one, all of it, the whole experience, that whole week. So figured out actually how to hammer properly because I'd been kind of working on my own. And so I figured out how to hammer properly. I figured out how fire works in a coal forge and learned that technique about how to actually use a coal forge to make metal work in the way that you want it to. And then just the ability to not have to do, again, the S-hooks 500 times, not have to do the nails, which Ellen will talk about in the podcast. 200 nails. It's, okay, so what kind of things are your ideas and how can we make this come to life in a different way? So you don't have to take that standard path. You can really create something really cool that's meaningful for you right there and on the spot. And I did. I had this beautiful necklace, and we call it murder jewelry because it's very pointy. And
we'll put a picture of that.
Yeah, definitely. And so it was a brilliant experience. Cool. The whole thing was just a brilliant experience, and the people were awesome.
Yeah. So the artistry of making cool wearable things while also learning new skills in blacksmithing.
Exactly.
I think that's a really interesting niche that she's filling in there. So, In this episode, please enjoy our interview with blacksmith artist. What else is she? She's
entrepreneur, model, teacher,
yeah.
Overall awesome person.
Ellen Durkan.
Ellen Durkan. All right, Ellen Durkan, thank you so much for joining us today on our Dream 10X podcast. And the focus of our podcast is typically people who have really big dreams and are able to achieve them or working towards achieving them. And you are amazing. So I met Ellen at a blacksmithing class. There's a VA blacksmithing school, the VA Virginia Blacksmithing Institute in Waynesboro, Virginia. And I was looking on their website when I was just beginning to figure out even how to use a forge. And I found Ellen's work and said, oh my God, I must take a class from her because she is magical. So fortunately was able to get into the class and able to meet her live and in person, and she is wonderful, and she's here with us today to share all of her wisdom. So Ellen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and I'm glad you took my workshop and you survived, and you were like, I think I'll talk to her again too, so good.
Yes. So tell us a bit about your background. You grew up in Delaware?
Yeah, I grew up in Delaware, and then I was going to go to school for nursing, and I started going to school for nursing, and then I decided that that would be terrible for me, and then I switched to art, and I just kept going, and then I ended up in blacksmithing somewhere in graduate school is the shortened version, so probably around 2008. I started like haphazardly forging things because my school had a forge, but there was no one there to like teach forging. So it was just me kind of just smashing at things. And then at some point during my graduate program, one of the other professors suggested that I take a class at a craft center and that they had blacksmithing. And I was like, what is blacksmithing? And this was before like, social media and internet, and you could just like find everything really easily. So I applied to be an assistant at Peters Valley Craft Center. And I got the assistantship for part of the summer. So I went out there and was like, so this is what blacksmiths do. And then it was all coal forges, and I just I didn't know what I was getting into, but I got kind of hooked on blacksmithing around then, and I went back to graduate school to finish up my program, which was a 3-year program. And then I built all of these wearable dress contraptions that were stationary. And then I put nude women inside of them for the exhibition. And the dresses were not structurally sound, but like the ideas were there. It's just the engineering and like the skills and everything were a little bit rough, but I had big ideas and stuff in my brain. I just, was trying not to kill anybody, but we didn't do any trial runs before the thesis show. So I had one girl pass out, which is fun.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, I was like, people were like, did you do trial runs? And I was like, no, we didn't have time for trial runs. We just put people in these devices and we were like, time to go.
Damn.
Since then, I have like continued that series, and now I make separates. So instead of like one big murder death trap that you just get encaged in, I make separate pieces that you can, assemble depending on like, what fits and what doesn't fit.
And you build in leather into your work too, so it's more malleable and
yes.
Yeah.
So that's another learning curve that I went through. So originally I was like, went from these stationary cage dresses to just like metal on the body. So that was kind of rough. And then I was like, let me add some leather to make it less tortury. So some of my early models that have been modeling for like years are like, remember the OG dresses? And I'm like, yeah.
I think one of my favorite pieces is your metal corset.
Yeah, they've gotten better. I've been in everything that I've made, so yeah. I'm not putting people in these devices without having any idea what they feel like. And then if I have new people modeling, I do trial runs. So I don't just send them out on the runway to just like, bye, good luck, hope you don't die, don't get stuck in a door frame. By the way, you have to go sideways in that one or you'll get stuck.
Oh my God. So one thing you said in your website, which I absolutely loved, is you created these pieces, you enjoy creating pieces to fit the complex forms of the figure and how each piece takes on a new present with a new wearer. So it's like living art.
Yeah, and that was always important to me. I just didn't know that early on. Like early on when I started making these pieces, like they looked cool by themselves and people were like, well, why can't they just be like sculptural objects? And I was like, no, they need to be like wearable, not just like the thing. And it makes more sense now, but I was really hell-bent on it early on. I just didn't understand why until I started seeing like different people in the pieces and how like they took it to like a different level every time. And then I started teaching the workshops, which early on the workshops were like hard to navigate because the class is structured in a way where everyone has a lot of independence with their pieces. Like everyone's building similar elements, but you're applying them differently. So there's a lot of room to like express yourself, which is different and it's hard to navigate. So early on the classes, people were like, we don't know what to do with these classes. And I was like, well, we're going to make wearable things, but there is structure, but like people have to be open to, you know, experimenting with not only their body, but like their concepts and stuff. So that was definitely interesting. And teaching has made me realize that the wearable aspect is kind of more important almost at this point than just like the physical pieces, I guess. And then every time I make the pieces at conferences, people are like, oh, I want to wear them. And it's like unassuming people will be like coming out of the audience like, I want to put it on. I want to take a picture of me in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Okay, so that's really interesting too because when I was at I went to Dale's grilling tools class. We were talking about you, of course, because you're awesome. And
the grill. I'm not talking about the grill.
You know, murder weapons. And he was saying that he had somebody ask him, well, do I have to get naked to blacksmith in this class? And he's like, no,
You're like,
please keep your
sir,
clothes on.
No.
So, like, what is that dichotomy, and how are you able to merge into the blacksmithing world, and what challenges do you face with that?
I think when people come at it with that approach, it's their own kind of like, I guess their own insecurities or inability to like grasp what it is. So I don't really think it's like on me. So I think it's just people's own like, I think when things make people uncomfortable, they get kind of like standoffish, or they're like, oh, like I wouldn't be naked. And it's like, just their own reaction to it. So early on when I started, I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like maybe I should change, like manipulate my concepts to make other people comfortable almost ish. And I think that was in the back of my head, but I was always like, no, I don't want to do that. It's the same when I structured my classes. It was like, well, maybe you should just build your classes so it's like, okay, we're all making this item, we're all making this thing that everyone can understand or whatever. Then I probably just stopped like being worried about it. I was like, I'm going to do the thing. And then like the people that are attracted to it and that want to take the classes, they can take them. And the people that don't have to take the classes. So I think at one point I was talking to somebody and I had written up a class description and I put the words like emotional armor in the description. And then they were like, oh, well, people read it and those words were like, we don't know what that means. Like, we can't pitch a class that says like emotional armor or something. And I'm like, was it a bunch of old dudes that need to go to therapy?
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that term, especially because one of the things I'm doing in my day job is we're building mindfulness across our organization. And one of the areas we're really focusing in on is empathetic and mindful communication. And one of the big barriers people have is understanding the needs of others and what's behind that. And so it is that barrier to understand your own needs and the needs of others. So I love the term emotional armor, because that really kind of emphasizes what we're trying to do. And I love the visualization of the metal being that armor, and how do you overcome that. So that, sorry, sidebar, but that was just really cool.
Yeah, and I was like, but I feel like that fits the work really well. And I think the people that are going to be attracted to the classes are going to be different people than someone who's going to take, like, someone who's going to be like, oh, I want to take this tool making class or whatever. Not to say they can't take both, but someone might be interested in taking my class that would be like, I never thought about getting into like blacksmithing or whatever until I saw this particular thing, and I thought I would try it. Because if you introduced me to blacksmithing early on, you're like, Ellen, you have to make these like 500 nails, and you have to make these hammers. And I would be like, sorry, I'm out. Like the first class experience I did have was a tong making class, and it was a power hammer class. And it was when I was at Peters Valley and I was the assistant, and it was really intense because it was a bunch of like, mostly professional or semi-professional, like blacksmiths, and it was a power hammer class, and I had no idea what was happening at all. I was terrified because like the intro was like, you have 1 inch bar stock that's X long, and then you had to do like math to make the thing do. And I was like, I was like, I can't. And I was sitting in the back, and I was like, we're panicking. We're totally panicking. And we're so out of place. Because I was like, I don't know, I think I was 22. And it was like all mostly professional men. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
shit.
I was like, oh my God, they're doing math. Oh my God, they're making tools. And I was like, I have no idea what's happening. And then once I calmed down, I was like, okay, I see the shapes. This makes sense. And then then I was okay. But I just had to freak out for a second, because I was like, that was an intense intro to it. So the next classes were more artistic, and I was like, oh, well, that would have been a better start. I would have been like, okay, okay.
It's not all like this.
Yeah, I was like, this is okay. We're gonna make some organic forms and some scrolls. But the tong making one was a little bit intense for me in my first go around. It was definitely a little bit panicking. But so if people see my class and they are like, oh, okay, maybe I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
So it meets a set of people where they are.
Yeah, and then everyone can take the class as a beginner as well, and they can come out with a really cool piece, because I gear the classes towards everyone's skill sets as well. So everyone has different tier options that they can meet depending on what their experience level is. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that is harder to navigate as a workshop, but the outcome is cool.
Yeah, totally.
And I think people leave with a lot of unexpected pieces where they're like, oh, I didn't think I was going to make this. I thought I was just going to be able to forge a hook by the end. I'm like, not in this class.
Now you got horns and
yeah, you got things coming out of everywhere. And I'm like, I don't know.
Totally.
Well, how did you make the transition of getting out of the normal, making knives and the hooks and stuff like that, and traditional blacksmithing, to making clothing?
Oh, well, I didn't start off there. I just launched into the clothing. I skipped the whole traditional.
What gave you the chutzpah, the desire to
don't know. I just went for it, and I think there's several other bodies of work that I was working on before then, and then I started on this metal series in graduate school, and I had other things going on in my studio. And I did people would come by and they would do artist one-on-ones, and you'd have visiting artists and whatever come by, and you'd have critiques. And then I had someone tell me that to not continue the wearable body of work because they didn't think it was going anywhere. And I was like, well, I don't think you're right.
Damn.
I was like, I don't think you're correct. But like, it wasn't developed to the point where someone else could see its potential. So I understand like why you would say that. But also, I always tell my students, I'm like, that doesn't mean I'm like right. If you think there's like potential in that direction, by all means, go find out. Like, and if he doesn't, then you just took a little sidebar anyway. So whatever. But I was like, I don't think you're correct. So I'm going to continue all 3 different bodies of work at the same time and be a crazy person. So.
Was there somebody else doing something like that already, or did you have a model already to look to, or is it you just created your own trailblaze?
I think I just kind of stomped off in my own direction. Like, I mean, people build wearable pieces all the time, like jewelry, armor, and stuff like that. But my stuff, a lot of it comes from my drawings and stuff. So I think that's why I was attracted to forging, because I could switch up the line weight in the steel visually and create a 3-dimensional drawing that I could wear. So I think that's the reason a lot of my work is so linear almost, and less like solid and like bulky.
When you teach, do you at the art school, do you teach just drawing and design? Do you teach modeling, blacksmithing? What do you teach?
I definitely don't teach blacksmithing. I teach like all levels of drawing and sculpture and 3D design and figure drawing and figure sculpture. And then, yeah, I would like to be able to teach that, but all the blacksmithing stuff that I teach is usually during the summer when I teach my workshops, and then the conferences are usually during the summer, or, I mean, I book them during the school year as well at this point, so.
Okay. That's very cool.
I'm like, whatever. I only teach 3 classes. I'm adjunct, so I'm like mostly disposable, so I'm aware of it. So I'm just gonna live my life how I want to live it, so.
Fair enough. But you also do like group exhibitions, and you're on TV, and you do runway shows, and you do a little bit of everything.
I like to do different things. Like, why be stuck in like one category? If you're gonna be crazy, be like full all around crazy.
See, that's why I love you.
I'm always like, yeah, that's an option. So students are like, we have these things. And I'm like, do you have ideas on other things? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. Let's see what kind of tangents we can go on.
That's awesome.
I get sidetracked. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. We could go that. Every time I teach workshops, I'm like, I'm not 100%. This is the game plan and this is what we're gonna do. I'm like, okay, that seems interesting. Let's roll with it and see what happens.
That's very positive. Are you ever like, this person just has no self-awareness of their skills?
I usually, if somebody comes in and their skills aren't at the level of whatever they're trying to do, I'll try and modify their concepts of their design. So I'll like pitch out, be like, okay, here's some ideas that you can build in X amount of time realistically, and then modify it to that. So I'm pretty good at gauging like where people are. I mean, if someone is like hell bent on doing whatever they're going to do, if they want to hammer 2-inch square stock till their arm falls off for 5 days, and that is what they want to do, and I cannot talk them out of it at this point in my life, I'm like, you do you. That's fine. But most people are pretty reasonable and are like, okay, this is my skill set. This is what, and then, but, you do you, whatever.
Did you naturally learn those mentoring skills, or did you have to grow into them?
I'm not sure, because my parents had 9 kids, so I was the oldest of 9 kids. So I don't know if that had something to do with my ability to navigate humans and organize them so they didn't all die at the same time.
Yeah. Except your models.
Yeah. And then my college students, I'm always like, no chill. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, I don't have no chill at this point. Like my emails are like, just like bullet points of things that you need to do or you fail. I'm just like, here are the things. I'm like,
That's the way it needs to be. Yep.
yeah. I'm like, whatever. And then all my models are volunteers. So they want to do it and they want to do it like again. So I'm like, okay. That was something that I thought was interesting as this whole thing progresses. How many people were like super excited to be in the pieces and not only be in them once and be like, I regret this decision. They're like, oh, I'll do it again. And I was like, well, wait till tomorrow when your low back is hurting. So.
And yet they still came back to help.
They do come back. You got to have a couple days in between. I have noticed that as I get older, the skirts get a little bit heavier, and I don't know if they're actually getting physically heavier, but my spine.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I am like, oh, I can't be wearing that in heels for 6 hours. That's a little bit insane.
How do you fit the stuff you make to a model?
I make it about my size-ish, and then I make it adjustable with the leather. So having the pieces built in separates makes them pretty adjustable for a lot of different sizes and like torso lengths and everything. Because you can be like a similar size as somebody, but like your bust is different, or your torso length is different. Things are longer, things are shorter, whatever. And then when I have models, all of my like models are usually just like regular people. Not like Victoria's Secret's fashion models that are like 8 feet tall and have like the torso length of my entire body. And stuff. They're like regular women. So I try and fit a piece for them so that not only like physically fits them, but it also like fits their personality or whatever. And then I ask them if there's something that they want to wear that they like see that they're like, oh yeah, I want to wear that. And then I kind of go from there. So it has to fit both. So if I see someone if I put someone in a piece and they're looking uncomfortable, but they're like not telling me they're uncomfortable, then I'll just I'll switch them out with something so they don't like feel insecure on the runway or in the photos, because all of that will come out when you're walking or doing your photos. Even if you don't think there's something wrong with, like, no one else would be like, there, oh God, but if you feel uncomfortable, like, I don't want to put you out there like that. Yeah. So everyone has issues with things that you're like, obviously that is a non-issue, but to them it might be an issue.
What is it about metal as a medium that attracted you to clothing?
When I started, I was like welding. Wait, you froze for a second.
Oh no, we're here. Do you see
it? Okay. Oh, thanks. This is how I'll end up like, over. Well, in graduate school, I was welding up these steel frames and I was sewing fabric on them. And I was just making these like big kind of ugly sculpture things. And then I started stripping off all of the fabric and whatever other random bullshit I was putting on there. And then I started hitting the metal and I could manipulate the metal. And I thought that was cool that I could manipulate it. And it was like drawing in 3 dimensions. And then as I got like better at like my craft, and then I really started to learn how to manipulate the metal and the stock size and like see how far I can like push the material. And then I was like, yeah, that's cool. But that's probably what hooked me in. And now my body's like, not so cool now, huh?
Getting all their socks.
Yeah, my shoulders like, should have stuck with drawing. I'm like, yeah, I did, but they're giant ass drawings and they also hurt my shoulder.
are the drawings behind you how you typically start a metal piece?
They go back and forth. So the one that's like right behind me, this big monster
cool.
one, that neck piece is a copper neck piece that I made before this one. So then I photographed it on a friend and then made the drawing. So sometimes they go back and forth. Sometimes the drawings are like their own thing.
Yeah.
But I like to have multiple things going at the same time. I have another piece of paper that I set up too, because this is where a normal person would have a TV in their apartment. But
okay, how do you reach the height? Do you get on a stool and like just go up and
yeah, I have a stool that I step on, and then I've also worked on this big one. I've taken it down, put it on my drawing table, and then I've had it on the floor at points. So
yeah,
it's a little excessive. So
how would you characterize your style, your clothing style? Is it like steampunky, or do you not have a characteristic that you kind of look?
I don't know. I call it forged fashion at this point to like simplify it. But it's a wearable art. It's for performance reasons. So people are frequently like, "Where would you wear that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Trader Joe's. Go buy cheese. Doesn't matter. Wherever you want. Social distancing. Don't." That's pretty common when people don't understand it at all and they're like trying to grasp for something. They're like, "But where would you wear it?" And they're just like, "Make it make sense." And I was like, "It doesn't make sense." And they're like, "Somebody tell me." I'm like,
Do you wear it? Do you wear your own stuff out and about, like at Trader Joe's?
well, I usually don't wear it out and about because I'm not that ambitious. Like, unless at this point we're doing photos or something like that, then I don't get that overly ambitious. I mean, maybe someday. Maybe when I get old and I was magically wealthy, I would wear it out on the regular just because to make a scene.
Absolutely. Oh, I had a question and I lost it.
Probably because I get distracted really easily. I always warn people, and I'm like, "Okay, just, pull me back in because we don't know what we're going to say."
That's why it's fun.
I'm like, "We're not going to listen to this because we're not going to listen to ourselves for an hour talk because that's insane."
So what's been the biggest challenge for you overall in this whole experience?
Of like being an artist, generally. Hustling. It's really hard to make money unless you like come from money or like you marry money or you are very lucky or something. I would say most people that graduate from art school aren't making a living at it like 10 years later. I would probably assume that because it is incredibly difficult. So I've worked all different jobs. Like I bartended for 7 years. I was working at a fabrication shop before the entire universe blew up. I had to pay off an exorbitant amount of student loans. So that was definitely brutal. I'd say just like hustling, because everything that you do to make money isn't making enough money by itself for you to support yourself. Yeah. So teaching an adjunct at a college, people might be like, "Oh, you teach at a college." And you're like, "I'm adjunct. We get paid like it's 1982.
And no benefits and any of that.
And there's no benefits, and we're just poor all the time, and we have no chill." So the students are just like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "Well, contact me in 10 years and then see if I was overreacting."
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, I'd say making it work is just, it's different because there's no guidelines for it. There's no guidelines for being like, this is how you survive as an artist. This is how you survive making wearable metalwork. There is no like path that you're like, "Oh, if you follow these steps, you will be successful." Yeah. There is no path. So I think
Starting your own
as soon as you realize that you're kind of by yourself and you're just got to do your thing, and I think if you're passionate about it, that doesn't mean you're going to be rich.
Right.
It just means that you're going to be like doing your thing and not completely hating your existence.
Right.
But there's also like the security is not there. So you're just, if you need security, then the art path would probably not be for you.
Well, then imagine like a lot of your students, and you're absolutely an example for other people who are up and coming in the art world about how to try and make it work and how to like live your passion and dream. And so I just am so impressed that you're doing this and able to at least survive and keep going.
Yeah.
And then
They were making a living. I'm like, you mean a surviving? Because a living would imply other things, but a surviving might be a little bit more accurate.
Yeah. So how do you make money?
Well, I make $3 teaching at the college, and then I organize my workshops and my conferences and demonstrations and all that. So that brings in money. I occasionally do commission work, but that isn't the base of my income.
Yeah.
Like it's random, and I don't do like really big like Gates commission and stuff like that, and or something that's super extra fabrication based. Even though I did finish up this one project that I had to haul ass on right as soon as I got back from California, which was more fabrication.
That was the certification gate one that you were working on last year?
I finished that one already. That made me cry a lot.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah, there's a lot of crying. So if you're going to do art and you're going to survive this long, you're just going to have to cry, I feel like.
It's the passion into the art.
Yeah, just cry a little bit every day and you'll be fine. It'll be good. It'll be fine.
Sounds like my regular job. Shoot.
I know, but just normalize it. It's socially acceptable.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to be like, that was not helpful, Ellen. I wanted 3 easy steps to making money. And I'm like,
so how do we support you? How do we support you in this adventure and help to make sure that art lives?
you can take workshops at different craft centers, like in Virginia. So I'll be back there at this place teaching another wearable workshop. So you can take workshops with
Virginia Blacksmithing Institute.
Yeah, and it's at the end of this month, which is, or is it May yet? It's almost
May is tomorrow, yeah.
What the hell?
I know.
I know. I'm like, I don't know what year it is. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, I'll be back at the Virginia Institute end of May if you would like to take a workshop. And then I do have Patreon as well. So I post Patreon. It's a crowdfunding. So like if you have an artist or someone that you like and you want to support and you want to give them a couple dollars or whatever, you can sign up for that. And so I do my art and my pinup and everything because I do different things, and that is on my Patreon.
So as a Patreon, you sign up and you are able to support you in your art, and then as the person who gives you money, like the crowdfunding, you get things in return.
Yeah, so you'd get access to like different processes of work and like updates on things that I'm not posting on social media. It's just if you have an artist or someone that you're like, oh, I'd like to make sure that they can buy cheese this week. And then you'd be like, I'm going to give them $15. Like,
while she goes to buy cheese in her full of
in my medal, my social distancing uniform, and my cheese in Trader Joe's. I feel like Trader Joe's would be okay with me doing that. I feel like
I would think so. I think they'd support it.
Yeah, probably.
So Patreon is where people can go to find a way to support you in addition to taking the blacksmithing workshops.
Yeah.
And all that is on your website, www.ellendurkan.com.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram and check out things because there's a lot of different stuff. I go in different directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your Instagram posts are so cool. And I love how you model as well and embrace your own art as well as getting other people involved. So it's
Yeah, I can't just torture other people, especially with like the underwater stuff. I'm like, well, we're gonna drown too. I can't put somebody in this metal underwater and then just be like, good luck.
We'll drown together, and it's gonna be
Well,
beautiful.
drown. Yeah. Jess is my drowning buddy, so like I drown first, and I'm like, let me see like how drowny this is, and then Jess goes in it, and then we drown together, and that's how you build friendships.
That's a good friend to have. So, what advice would you give to new artists who are trying to find their own path and journey?
What advice would I give them? I would tell them to try a lot of different methods and techniques for things.
Mm-hmm.
And if they feel pulled in a certain direction, to try it out, see if it works, and then it's gonna be a hustle. So brace yourself. Yeah, you're gonna have to work other jobs in order to support yourself more than likely. And I think if you're passionate about it and you really want to do it, then do it. So do your art, work your other jobs, sort it out. If you're trying to swing your art to like a direction of whatever's trending, I think that's a terrible idea. I think I guess like the more genuine you can be with yourself at the time, the better off you will be in the long run than trying to chase something that doesn't suit you anymore.
Yeah.
And that'll change as you get older and you start evolving. So if you feel dead in whatever you're doing, like you don't feel motivated and you don't feel like excited about it, then you need to like switch something up a little bit and try something a little different, so you're not just dragging yourself along.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you find something more secure financially, like working a corporate job in a cube or something like that?
At this point, I would rather throw myself off a bridge. I think if I was going to do something like that, I would have had to get into it in my 20s. And at this point, like I've paid off a gratuitous amount of like all of my student loans, and I've worked all of the jobs that make me want to stab myself in the eye. And I think I've made it to a point where I'm just like, I just don't want to waste my time doing a bunch of shit that I don't want to do that doesn't benefit me at all. Like it'll give me money, but then I have what do I do? Spend like 10 years of my life doing this thing that just like drains my existence so I can have health insurance, and then like I don't know. That doesn't appeal to me at all at this point. And I feel like I'm just getting more and more stubborn on it. So like if I was gonna do it, I would have stuck with nursing at the beginning of the thing, and then my life would be very, very different. I would be probably, I don't know, relatively normal-ish human, maybe. I don't know.
But
It's definitely like a thought when I get ragey. I'm like, I should just go get a normal person job. And then like visualizing myself trying to do like a normal person thing. I'm like, that would be terrible. Like I like teaching because I can go in and do it on my own terms. No one's there like breathing down my neck. I go and I do my job. And I really do love working with the students and stuff like that. And I can do that on my own terms and like teach my own way. And then I go home and I'm not taking all the bullshit with me. Yeah. Like there's no one, it's just, and then everything that I do for my workshops and demonstrations, like I have to organize that myself. And then people reach out to me, and it's a lot of like scheduling and booking things. And then hoping that I like, book my flights to like the right location and the right day and the right year.
So what is it about taking this path less traveled in your life? Not being a nurse, being an artist, and working with making metallic clothing for people that hardly anybody ever. You're trailblazer there. What is it about that lifestyle that you're getting out of that?
I didn't.
Why go through all this hustling that you have to go through so you can do this art?
Because it wasn't planned. Like I didn't mean to do it. It wasn't something that like I was like, oh, I'm going to go be an artist. I'm going to go struggle bust for the rest of my life. Because if I had that like wherewithal when I was like 17, I would have been like, fuck that shit. I'm going to go be a nurse. I think I was just drawn to the arts because I've always done like arts stuff. And I just kept going with it. So it wasn't like a 10-year plan kind of thing. And yeah, it's definitely not easy. It's definitely not easy. I would say if you're like good at like multiple things, then do the art and go be like, I don't know, smart scientist over here. And then do your art stuff. That would be smart. But I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna have to struggle bus it. Since the things that I like am attracted to and I'm like decent at, I'm like, would you like these things? People are like, no. Like, cool. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're becoming more of your authentic self doing what you're doing as opposed to some other path you were taking earlier, and you have freedom in doing what you're doing.
Yeah, especially as I get older, I do feel like that the path makes sense for what I'm doing right now. Not that I'll always be doing this. It's just, it feels right for me right now. So like when I switched from nursing, when I dropped the nursing major and then I went to art full time, I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to have my first mental breakdown. Looking back, I'm like, yeah, that was reasonable. That was a reasonable breakdown. But I kind of, I guess I might have known early on that didn't make sense for me. Not that like this makes any sense to anybody else, but I feel like
it makes sense to you. It's all that matters.
It makes sense and like it feels like right for what I'm doing. Not that it's easy or it makes any sense. So there's a lot of things that make zero sense to most people, but you know what? I don't know. Some of us have to just make no sense.
Cindy gets it.
Yep, 100%. Every day.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain because like so many people are very pragmatic and like the way they make their decisions is like, oh, like what are you going to get out of this? Like you're going to get X amount out of this, and this is how your dollars work, and you know you do this and blah blah blah, and you get these things, and like when your brain works like that, it kind of puts blockers up because you're like, I see no purpose in that thing over there that's like not useful, and you're like, and when you're like art brains, you're like, what's over there? Yeah. Like the practical blacksmithing classes where you're like, we're making a spatula. And people are like, yes, I understand the spatula. That makes sense. But when you're using the same techniques that you'd make a spatula with in my class, people are like, well, why are we putting this on our bodies? Yeah. So the skills that you're learning, you can apply to like whatever you want. It's just like what I choose to do is the wearable stuff right now. So I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll get into making samurai swords or something, but I don't know.
You do things that bring you joy, and you live your life with joy, and you don't give a shit what anybody else says. Like, this is the path that I'm going, and
I mean, I have a lot of rage in there with the joy. I have like sheer determination, which possibly might be run by rage of like me just like plowing my way through things where I'm like, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna make the thing work, and I don't know how, but we're going to make that work. I don't know what it is. I'm not just like, do, rainbow bright up in here. I'm like, seething rage. We're going to do this.
All right, that's fair.
I'm like, we'll make it work. We'll make the thing work. I don't know how. I don't know. But I think if other people can see that you're passionate about it, then that will draw them in instead of like you half-assing your way through something that you don't really like.
Yeah. And then you would be a lot more ragey. So in some ways, it's a little bit joyful.
Yeah, at least I get like, I'm like, okay, cool. We made something cool. And then people are like, what does it do? And I'm like, nothing. I'm like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, photograph it. And they're like, where do those go? And I'm like, nowhere. I reformat them when I apply for grants that I don't get, and it's very annoying. So that's what they do. Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, yeah, if you had told me that this would be my life, I would be like, that doesn't make any sense.
I think
So,
it's amazing.
well, like you asked earlier, and I was like, yeah, this was not planned.
Yeah.
I did not. I was not like, I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to do blacksmithing. Like, that was not. Someone would have had an intervention like early on or something.
Wow. And so, like, for me, I would love to just stop it all and just go blacksmith and throw heavy objects and row all day long.
Yeah, exactly, right? See, like, that's where I am in my brain, but I don't have the financial backing to genuinely believe that. But I have the attitude
Yeah.
where I don't want to do the things that I don't want to do. And that doesn't mean I'm like not doing commissions that like I do commissions and stuff that I'm not, this is my favorite thing in the universe. Like I do them within reason and stuff, but like, I just like, I don't want to go work a job for 10 years so I can sit there and go like this and send, you know. Plus I can't even send like an appropriate email that would be like corporate friendly at this point.
You know, people might actually read the bullet pointed emails. I'm like,
It would be like, I said what I said. Here's the
yeah.
Do you have a forge at home? Do you have a home forge that you built?
I have a forge that's right outside. So I live in the city. The forge is outside of the city.
Oh.
So I don't think I could have it in my apartment, and that might be bad. Might lose my security deposit.
Is it a coal forge?
Yeah, I have a coal forge, which I use coal because I can isolate my heats better for what I'm doing. But also induction forges are really good for that. So if I magically come into money or something, I will buy one of those.
She started out with propane, and I was like, "Yeah, you need to get coal." So she finally got herself a little coal forge. But
after your class, when you taught me how to use it,
I didn't realize how much
Yay!
it smoked.
It's pretty dusty.
Yeah.
If you have neighbors or anything like that,
they've been pretty tolerant so far.
Yeah, and then if the wind is going, like if you don't have a draft.
Yeah.
Do you have any of the big metal hammers? The I don't know what we call them.
I have a tire hammer.
A tire hammer?
It's like a power hammer, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's a little baby. It's a tire hammer thing. So it's like a power hammer, but it has a lot less control than like an air hammer, which I would like an air hammer, which I might just go invest in because don't care anymore, but I also like my shoulders and I would like to have an air hammer. So if anybody wants to give me an air hammer, that would be fantastic.
Crowdfund for Ellen's air hammer.
Yeah, give me an air hammer so like my noodle arms don't fall off and stuff.
And then no more art, so that's not a good thing. All right.
I know. I'll just have to invest in one at some point.
Yeah. And do you weld?
Yes, I have a MIG welder, but I don't usually weld for like my art pieces, my wearable pieces. I usually use a lot of riveting, and if I do weld, I'll use my oxyacetylene torches to do the welds, to make nice flat welds, until I can get like a TIG welder, and then I can make nice flat welds. But that's a whole other tangent. But yes, I have a smaller MIG welder.
Why do you prefer the rivets to welding?
I like the way the rivets look in the pieces. So the way it attaches, I like to use as a decorative element to kind of call attention to like how it's assembled. So if I'm going to put a weld in there, I'm going to make the weld kind of seamless if I use one, just so it doesn't call attention, so there isn't like a big old like bead on there that doesn't make sense with the piece. But I just did a bunch of welding on this last commission thing that I had to do.
Oh wow!
But
when's your next show? Do you do?
I don't have like a big runway show lined up, but I did do 2 pretty big shows right before the entire universe shut down in like 2018, 2019. I did a runway show when the models were from the ages of 14 to 72. And then I did a big like solo retrospective show that I have a video of that I can send you a link for.
Yeah, please. We'll put it on the...
That was good. I'd like to do another like big solo show, but I'm glad I didn't wait till 2020 because people were like, wait till 2020. And I was like really stubborn. I was like, no, now. Which I'm glad because we all know 2020 was a shit show.
Yeah.
So my stubbornness paid off. So.
Well, why haven't you done anymore?
Well, they take like a while to book out, and in order to do like an exhibition of that scale, you need to have the space available and funding. Like if you're going to do like the runway shows require a lot of funding, and you need a venue. And like the last one that we did part of it was part of a fundraiser for Delaware Contemporary, which is a museum gallery here. So they gave me the venue and did it as part of like funding for their staff. But to put on the show by yourself would be extremely expensive. Just every detail gets expensive. It's like from your venue to your models to your hair and makeup, like your everything is expensive.
Was the first show that you did back in 2018 or 2019, was that, did anybody buy any of your pieces as a result of that?
No, because that was like a performance runway one. Like my very first like runway-ish one was probably back in like 2016 maybe. And then I did several other runway shows as part of like a bigger fashion week thing. And I don't really like doing the ones that are part of more of a fashion week vibe because I'm not trying to sell anything. It's like fashion weeks generally, unless it's like couture fashion, like you're marketing your brand. So people have to pay to be part of runway shows. And like, I'm not going to put out $5,000 to be part of a show to like not sell anything. Like, like, yeah.
That makes sense.
But I don't do the shows to sell things. Which is probably part of my problem. It could be my underlying issue. He's like incredibly frustrated. He's like, this makes no sense.
Well, why do you do the shows then?
Performance art, I guess. So like my last show, my models were from the ages of 14 to 72. And I partnered with a friend of mine who does fabric felt work. So she had these like felted fabric-y pieces and we combined them with the metal and the models came out in age order. And our oldest model was 72 and she was our finale model. So it was just more of how I want the work to be viewed than like somebody buying it. Not to say that someone can't buy it. It's just like my goal isn't to like, I don't make the pieces to sell. I just make them however I want to make them in whatever psychotic manner I think I want to make it. And then I do that and I put it out there so I don't cut corners in my own like artistic creativity. So I'm not like, oh my God, if I spend X amount of hours, I can't sell this. So when I'm doing commission work, I absolutely am like, okay, X amount of money, we need it done in this amount of time. Yeah. So I'm not going to go off on like random tangents for commission stuff. But my own stuff, I just go off on like whatever little tangent that I want to go off on.
Yeah. That's very freeing, I would think. Like to be able to, when I design classes, it's kind of the same thing. It's when somebody asks me to do a class for them, they want these specific goals out of it. So it gives me the framework, but then I'm able to bring in crazy things like improv. So we do a lot of improv and a lot of like random things in our classes. So I have the framework, but I'm able to create as much as I want in that context. And that's been
it gives you some like freedom to like explore different things instead of just being stuck to like your list. Mm-hmm. But if you're like a list person, that this whole lifestyle would make you 100% insane.
Yep.
You married somebody like this and now you're insane.
I think it's a nice balance.
One person is like list, and the other person is like
all the things.
I'm like, I wrote lists on paper somewhere.
Oh, she's a list person.
I make lists too. They're just like
they're
on.
everywhere, though.
Yeah, I have this notebook where they're just kind of like upside down and backwards, and some of the words don't even like make sense. They're just like something that made sense at the time. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, that's yeah.
I'm like, why would I write that down?
Yeah, which meeting was I in for this one? Yeah, I'm told same way.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
What's coming up for Ellen Durkan? You mentioned you got a class coming up in May.
I do. I have a class at the end of May, which is a 5-day wearable workshop down at Virginia Institute. And then at the beginning of June, so June 2nd, I fly to Indianapolis. Yes, there. That's where I go. Well, that's where I booked my flight to, so that's where I'm going. I'll be there for the weekend doing a demonstration, and then I have a couple other workshops throughout the summer. So I'll have one in Arizona, which is a copper forming bustier workshop. So you can make some copper boobies.
Oh, that sounds epic.
Well, like I did a workshop down there in the blacksmithing, and then it's Arizona. So obviously you don't want to be like forging in the middle of summer in Arizona unless you want to die. So I did like a copper forming demo and made like a boob flower thing. And then they were like, oh, maybe you should come back and do it. I'm like, well, I'll totally do copper boob forming workshop.
That is awesome sauce.
So things like that evolve, and I just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because you never know what you're showing up to when you teach workshops and you do demonstrations. Your environment is different. Your people are different. You're probably half like dead anyway. So you just have to roll with it. Like, things go wherever they go.
Yeah, I can see like the Ren Fair people, which are also my people, and then like the steampunk people, like just eating that up because a lot of us make our own costumes and outfits. And
yeah, and you just gotta figure it out. Like, things go sideways, you sort it out. So when I demonstrate or whatever, if something goes a little off, I'm just like, all right, well, we went a little this way, and we'll bring it back in by doing this. So it's not about like hiding that you're a human and you like fuck shit up. Like, it's just like, well, let's just see what happens. Like, worst case scenario, we just fuck it up. And like, really, is it that big a deal? Like, we'll figure out how to unfuck it, or we'll remake it, or whatever, or we'll make a design change. So those are, that's how we roll at this point.
Absolutely, being agile in the processes, having a structure, but being agile and going where it goes. Yep.
You can't, like, if you fight it all the time, you're just gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
More crazy.
Last questions? All right. Thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome to talk to you and hang out again. And hopefully I'll see you in May if all goes well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, come down and make another piece.